friends, this is Austin Burns here again with another special episode of Tenors React. The last time I did this kind of episode, it was in reaction to sexual allegations against Placido Domingo, but today we're tackling a happier topic, the life and career of Andrea Bocelli and the criticism that he's gotten from the elite operatic community. I'm still getting the hang of the whole marketing side of YouTube where people say, hold on, wait till the end of the video because there's gonna be something super cool. So I'm thinking maybe a video of my cat Clementine being super cute at the end. Stay tuned. But I digress. Andrea Bocelli. He is a tenor that was born in 1958 in Italy. That qualifies you to be a tenor. Just so you know, if you're born in Italy, you grow up with Italian music. There you go, you're a classical singer. No, just kidding. Anyway, he went blind after a football accident at the age of 12. He already had a form of congenital glaucoma, but that exacerbated the condition and he went blind not long after that. He wasn't originally going to be a tenor. He always grew up listening to great tenors and singing and doing a lot of competitions when he was young, but his parents wanted him to become a lawyer, so he studied and actually became a lawyer in 1980. He practiced for 1 year and then decided it wasn't for him. He played a lot of music in piano bars. He won a few musical competitions. His big break was actually part of a musical competition to sing with the Italian rock superstar Zucchero, which means sugar. I know that because I do Duolingo every day. Not a sponsored ad. Anyway, won this competition to record a demo to send to Luciano Pavarotti so that Pavarotti could sing this duet with Zucchero. Pavarotti heard the recording. He was very impressed by the young tenor Andrea Bocelli, told Zucchero that you don't need to use me, you can just use him, he's fabulous. And basically Zucchero convinced him to do the recording anyway, and he recorded it as a duet between Pavarotti and Andrea Bocelli. Not long after that, Andrea Bocelli gets a record contract, countless albums, both classical and pop, and he is very successful. I believe on his website it says the world's most beloved tenor, though there's quite a lot of arguments that he is not the best tenor. I think it's hard to argue with the most beloved, just seeing as how commercially successful he is. Much of the criticism about Andrea Bocelli goes like this. Well, he's not a real classical singer. He sings pop music. The only reason he's popular is because he sings pop music, and he would never have a career as an operatic star just based on his own merits because his voice doesn't have the beauty of Rolando Villazon or Juan Diego Flores or Placido Domingo or Luciano Pavarotti, blah, 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 blah. Totally understand your argument, and I think there is some validity to that. Andrea Bocelli has a very nice voice. I don't think it's the best voice, and yes, it doesn't have the same tone quality as some of the more established tenors. And I think there's validity to the point that probably wouldn't be an operatic star on his own. I think he could have a very good career in opera, but I think the reason he has been so successful is he is handsome, that he overcame adversity, has an interesting backstory. The fact that he's unashamed to record popular music and he's not afraid to be accessible. And a lot of classical music is just not accessible. And I think that goes to not really the music itself, but how it's presented. He presents it in very accessible ways, for lack of a better term. Pavarotti did this same thing. He didn't perform in a way where you had to wait for 3 songs before you clap for someone. I don't know if you have ever been to see Winterreise by, I think it's Schubert, but it is a 30-minute or longer piece. It's just voice and piano. You can't clap at all. You have to wait till the very end. And it is excruciating, and it is so boring. So boring. And it's not that the music is bad. It's that you have all this pent-up adulation. You want to reward the performer. Classical music makes you subvert your own feelings of joy, and you want to have that connection with the performer. And people like Luciano Pavarotti, Andrea Bocelli understand that this is unnecessary. And so they create concerts where people can clap after every song, or aria, if you will. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But people in the classical music community get upset that people aren't observing these rules. It becomes this elitist society where people say, you can't come to this concert because you don't understand the etiquette. And it's just a ridiculous concept. And even organizations that try to break down those barriers, like Group Muse, for instance, which does house concerts for classical musicians, they have their problems because they consider classical music to be only by certain composers, and this gets down to a fundamental argument about people like Andrea Bocelli. If you're a classically trained singer and you are singing a song with your classical technique, but it is not by an established classical composer or arranger, does that mean it is not classical music? That people want to have rules of what to call classical music. And there are other pieces that are really just like folk songs. For instance, O Sole Mio or Torna a Sorrento. They're Neapolitan tunes. They're popular songs from the city of Naples. They've been turned into pop songs sung by Elvis Presley. For instance, O Sole Mio is It's Now or Never. Torna a Sorrento is Surrender. Plaisir d'Amour, the French tune, was turned into the melody I Can't Help Falling in Love with You. None of these, as the Elvis version, would be considered classical, but when you get a singer like Enrico Caruso singing O Sole Mio instead of It's Now or Never, a singer like Pavarotti or the Three Tenors singing it, suddenly it's classical music. Now what's the difference? The difference is how it's presented. It relies a lot more on technique. Andrea Bocelli gets criticized a lot for performing pop music, but a song like Miserere or Conti Partirò are not that different than a lot of the established Neapolitan standards that are in the tenor repertoire and are by many considered to be classical music. Whoa! Wait a minute! I don't know any of these songs that you're talking about! Well, that's okay because I'm gonna play some for you. This first excerpt that I'm gonna play is from Miserere. Misery. Miserere sounds pretty classical, right? Another one is Con te, got it right this time, Con te partirò. So this one goes a little like Con te partirò, paesi che non ho mai veduto vissuto con te, adesso sì li vivrò con te, partirò. You get the idea? Sounds pretty classical. The ones that are established are O Sole Mio. So that one is like this. Mannato sole più bello in me, O Sole Mio, sta alla fronte a te. Went to that C minor chord a little early. Anyway, you get the idea. And then we've got Torna a Sorrento. E tu dici o parto Dio, t'allontani dal mio cuore, questa tela dell'amore, hai la forza di lasciar. In this comparison, what is the difference? I'd say the difference is time. The difference is that something like O Sole Mio or Torna a Sorrento has been around so long that it has become established and is accepted as part of the tenor repertoire, where these newer popular songs are not. But what we have to remember is that when Enrico Caruso sang O Sole Mio in the very early 1900s, it was a relatively new song, just like Conti Partirò or Miserere. How can we fault Andrea Bocelli for doing something that tenors have done for centuries, singing popular tunes with large ranges, which now has become classical music? If you are a classically trained singer and you are singing using that classical technique, then it's classical music. because otherwise any folk songs that were arranged by classical composers would suddenly not be classical music anymore. And just because a pop star writes a song like Miserere, it doesn't mean that you singing it in a classical style, it's not classical music. Now, having said that, I know that it's a very slippery slope, because I could sing Drop It Like It's Hot. I would never sing that, but let's just say that I did. Now, that has a very limited vocal range, and even if I sang it in a classical style, I don't think that that would be classical music. So I think that there have to be some kind of limits on this. But if you look at something like Miserere, what are the things that would make it classical music? Something like O Sole Mio is very well associated with classical musicians, and tenors often make recordings of that, and no one questions that they are classical musicians. Now, what's the difference between that and Miserere? Is it vocal range? No. There's a very large range in both songs. Is it vocal technique? No. Both have been sung by established tenors. Is it the orchestration? Maybe. There's some pop orchestration going on in Miserere. There's some synthesizers, but the synthesizers are mostly used as a cheaper way to create string sounds, which are orchestral. The real difference is the years of that song being out there and being sung and established as a piece of the tenor repertoire. In my opinion, the difference between those two songs is time, and that people have just come to accept it because it's popular. There's not a huge difference between the two pieces. I'm not here to say that Andrea Bocelli is the greatest tenor, but I have to say that he, if nothing else, is the best marketed tenor. And we can learn a great deal from that. You don't have to be the best. And that's very liberating. At least it was for me, because I know that I'm not Luciano Pavarotti, but that's okay, because I don't have to be. If you're charming, if you're relatively good looking, if you're accessible, if you are funny, you can connect with an audience in a way that someone else couldn't. And that's okay, and that's fine, and it's not cheating. I studied classical voice. I have a relatively nice voice, a good tone, and I have other qualities that are also, I think, appealing to an audience, and there's nothing wrong with using that. And I think when critics are talking about him not being qualified or not deserving this success, they're basically saying, well, you can only be judged on your voice, and none of the other things that you do matter, such as the fact that he's an excellent musician. He can play piano, he can play all kinds of other instruments. Well, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you're also a good instrumentalist. We're just judging your voice. It doesn't matter that you're a good showman. People in the real world don't think like this. And that's part of the reason why he is so successful, because he's accessible in a way that a lot of other musicians aren't. And being accessible isn't cheating. It doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve his success. I've been listening to the audiobook The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer, and she's an independent artist who has a very interesting story. And before she became the successful musician that she is today, she used to be a living statue. She would get on top of a crate and she would stand there with white face paint and a white wedding gown. She had a bunch of flowers, and people would come and put money in a hat, and she would have an exchange where she would give them a flower and she would look them in the eye, not saying anything with her mouth, but with her eyes, saying thank you, and having this exchange. There were people that would shout, get a job. And I think we all have that sense as an artist, right? That what we're doing is somehow cheating the system, that we're gaming people somehow. But those people that gave money, they understood the exchange. It was valuable, meaningful to them. They gave it value by giving to her, and she gave to them. It was an exchange, and it was fair. And I think this whole idea with Andrea Bocelli is people don't think his success is fair. And calling him an opera star is not accurate, but saying that he doesn't deserve his success, that just seems ridiculous to me. He's worked very hard. He's done countless numbers of concerts, recorded countless numbers of albums. He's a well-trained musician who is good at a lot of things besides just singing, and he uses his talents and he's successful. So what's not fair? Now, all of this is not somehow an argument that he is the greatest tenor ever. It's not an argument that he deserves to be remembered as right up there with Luciano Pavarotti and the three tenors. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. He's good at what he does, and he gets paid well for it because he gives people what they want. And I think this is a great lesson for all classical artists that think they deserve things because they're good at what they do. The world doesn't owe you anything. And it's taken me a long time to get used to that idea. Because when I came out of graduate school, I thought, you know what? I have a master's degree. I deserve a really good teaching job, or I deserve this really good gig. But you don't. No one owes you anything. And unfortunately, a lot of what it comes down to is marketing. The difference between the success of one musician to another is not necessarily talent. It's about how many people did you call? How many venues did you contact? How many times did you try? It's not just about talent. The reason that I get a lot of gigs is not because I'm talented. It's because I follow up with people. It's because I email on a regular basis, because I have large lists that I've created, places to contact. Is my success fair? I may not be as good as this or that person, but I have my success, not just because I have good technique, or because I'm well trained, or even because I'm good with an audience. A lot of it is simply because I ask, and I ask over and over and over, and eventually I get something in return. It's just like Amanda Palmer standing on her crate, silently beckoning people to come forward and to have an exchange. Andrea Bocelli is doing the same thing. His concerts are more than just music. They are about an exchange, and it is given a monetary value by his audience. As a critic, you might think his talent is not worth this amount of money. And maybe it's not to you, but it is to his fans, and his fans are the ones that are willing to pay for it. And therefore, it's fair to the fans. Part of the reason I wanted to make this video is because I have my own personal history related to Andrea Bocelli. So when I was young, my mother had heard Andrea Bocelli on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and she had bought his tape. It was a tape at the time, and I listened to it every night before I went to sleep, and I listened to it so much that I wore it out and I had to get a CD. When she was sick, we watched a concert of him. I guess it was his 50th year in show business or something, and had a big PBS concert, and my mom and I watched part of that together in her hospital room. I still had a special place in my heart for Andrea Bocelli. As I mentioned, it's an exchange. It's about things other than just the performance. It has a lot of value to me because of, growing up listening to him, because of my relationship with my mother. Who is able to judge why people value something? Thanks again for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe. I'd love for you to join this small, tight-knit community of classical music geeks who like discussing odd topics. And also, please hit the notification bell if you'd like to be notified when the next video comes up. It's going to be a cover of Andrea Bocelli's song Romanza. Gee, what a coincidence. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and now you can watch some cute videos of Clementine.
You ready, baby girl? Here we go. Go get it. Okay. All right. Here we go again. You ready? Ready? Okay, go. Okay. Here we go. Ready?
Oh!
So impressive. You're so impressive. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Ready? Go get it. Hey. Okay. All right. Ready?
baby girl.